Welcome to the Cosmic Dispatch, a show about bodies, celestial and earthbound, time, experience, and the relationship between all of them. I'm your host, Cory Nakasue. Good afternoon, and so happy to be with you here today on this June 18th, 2023. Happy Father's Day to all who celebrate, and happy Juneteenth weekend. I've just recently returned from a retreat in Kusaki, New York. And I think I just learned maybe how to pronounce that correctly. So let me know if I am pronouncing that correctly. I know I haven't been for several years. Um, and I was over at Gather Green in Kusaki, where I was teaching and doing consultations for Wonder Wild retreats. And it was lovely. I read so many charts, like back to back to back, sometimes two or three charts at a time. So I'm not exactly sure where I am in the space time continuum right now. Um, yeah, I read a lot of charts. I did a lot of time travel, but I did have a good time, and they do a really great job. And I'll be back with them at the end of the month. If you're interested in that sort of thing, go ahead and look them up, the Wonder Wild Retreats. And I also have an event coming up this week at Opus 40 on the 23rd. I'll be giving a solstice talk and reading from my new book, The Cosmic Event of the Body. Come visit me. It's going to be a stunning event with music and a sound bath and stargazing, food, drink. I think it will be really lovely. What a way to ring in the summer solstice. And you can visit opus40.org for more details. They have awesome events scheduled actually for the whole summer. And I believe our friend Mandy Sheeler will be there this coming Friday. If you enjoy Mandy's moon reports and would like to say hello, come on down. And we have a fairly quiet week of astrology this week, but the two main events of the week are big ones. We have a new moon in Gemini that squares Neptune today on the 18th. And on the 21st, we have the sun's ingress into Cancer, which marks the summer solstice. And as usual, and as we usually do on all new moons, I might have to change this at some point. Um, because because things change, it's just not working out quite the way I want it to. But today we are going to do what we usually do for new moons. We're going to play some Gemini inspired tunes, not only in honor of the new moon, but also to say farewell to Gemini season. But before we get to all of that and this week's astro weather, just want to say thanks to everyone who supports this show and gives us such great feedback. It really helps us to guide the work and to grow it. Please continue to share your astrological musings, experiences, and ask us questions and give us show and guest recommendations by emailing us at thecosmicdispatch@gmail.com. And you can stay up to date with all of the content on our all of our content on our Instagram. And please subscribe to the Cosmic Dispatch on YouTube if you're a visual person or if you like to follow along with a transcript. You can do that there. All right. So let's dive in to this week's astro weather. During the wee hours of the morning, the moon in Gemini conjoined the sun in Gemini, which made our new moon. What new beginnings in the realms of communication, identification, and exchange are we looking to make? Gemini really needs to name and identify things, even if it decides to rename and re identify things a couple seconds later. Gemini and Mercury create spells out of symbols and words and ideas. And it sounds simple and harmless enough, but once we gather all our facts and data and name things, we can fall into a trap of categorizing, and stereotyping that actually goes against the true nature of Gemini, which is to explore the spectrum or taste the rainbow, if you will, if you're a Skittles fan. Um, and I think this aspect of Gemini will be especially pronounced at this new moon because it's in a super tight square to Neptune in Pisces, who's going to ask, what's in a name? Neptune is going to make it hard for this new moon to be as quick and dirty with its labeling and transmission of data, almost as if it wants to to screw Gemini up and confuse it. We could look at this as a frustrating thing, as in, grr, I can't seem to get my facts straight, or I can't communicate clearly, or be purely logical. Neptune's bringing the emotion and it's bringing the resistance to legibility. I mean, we could enjoy this if we wanted to, and we could also put it to good use. Um, I recently recorded an opinion piece for the podcast Body and Soul, created by Eva Ya Asentiwa. And I talked about the value of illegibility and how we need to get used to it, and how illegibility doesn't always mean chaos or meaninglessness or a lack of coherence. I'm actually going to read an excerpt from the podcast. And for those of you who are new to the Cosmic Dispatch, it serves as a bit of an introduction to me. Um, we are getting some interesting lighting things going on in here. Wonder if it's a Gemini thing. Um, so I'm going to read an excerpt from that. So I'm a theater artist, and my work includes writing, directing, choreography, and dramaturgy. I'm a counseling astrologer who also teaches and writes about it. And I've been a movement educator and therapist for at least 20 years, probably actually a little longer than that. And all of these practices dovetail. I don't really keep them compartmentalized, even though I do have two separate websites, but even those are interlinked. So over the past 5 years, dance dramaturgy has been very front of mind for me. I'm frequently called upon to define it somehow, either to myself, to my collaborators, as in, how does dramaturgy work in this project? Or what is your role in this project? What is our relationship? And to my friends who don't work in the arts, there's the more general, like, drama what? Like, what is that even? And that's when things get complicated because the way I understand and practice dramaturgy is that it lives in an invisible interstitial place. And it's a role that's malleable, it's integral, and yet it's invisible. And especially with dance, it requires an intense amount of language in order to do away with language so that we can arrive at other cohesions. So that would be like cohesions of energy, time, space, and feeling. And being someone with a strong Gemini signature, I want to name everything. I want to explain everything with glorious words and fantastic ideas. And especially with dance, if I do that too hard, I misrepresent it. And I can't support the very special work that is unique to live performance. And yet, ideas, words, and language are my primary tools. Um, I liken the role of dramaturg to the role of Mercury. And so Mercury is the planet that rules the sign of Gemini. So that would be Mercury in Roman mythology and Hermes in Greek mythology, and their roles as psychopomp. A psychopomp acts as a bridge between two worlds or two states of being, like conscious and unconscious. And in the case of Mercury slash Hermes, not only did they deliver the souls of the dead to the underworld, they also delivered messages from hell and heaven to the living. And by some accounts, they carried dreams to sleeping humans. The psychopomp is unique in this sense because it's not a denizen of one world or another, and it has the freedom to inform and influence by being able to travel to places other people can't go. And sometimes, if I'm thinking about the artist as a godly type of figure, they're so invested in their task and their mission that they can't visit these other realms without a guide. The psychopomp has no such investment in the work or the mission, and this gives them the freedom to travel to these nether regions of the mind, of space, of time. And this lack of investment gives them objectivity. It's not that the dramaturg isn't invested at all, but their investment is in locating the truths at many different levels and helping to figure out ways to language them into whatever's being created, to sort of help build the world that the artist can create in. And doing this all by reflecting the work back to the artist at different angles and expanding it, and cultivating many threads of meaning, but not really explaining, which leads me to the subject of legibility in respect to art and life, and how it's probably more important than ever to have examples that are not obsessed with legibility. Now, this doesn't mean that there's no form or craft or virtuosity, but I think it would serve humans more and serve more humans if we could let go of the need to identify something correctly. I mean, what does that even mean anyway? Um, so if we let go of the need to signal where we belong in a pantheon, it's actually more freeing and more accurate. Um, we also, I think, need to let go of the need for audiences and just others to mirror back to us that our intentions are right or that they hit the mark somehow. I think it's important that we aim for a different kind of virtuosity. Like, what would happen if we got really good at escaping explanation, but became expert at cultivating a feeling or even a vibe? What if virtuosity was assigned to things like complexity and coherence? And the funny thing is, or maybe the sad thing is, when we experience these things in life, things like the materially nondescript or the powerful but mysterious, or even the things that feel right but don't fit into language or follow rules or social norms. Usually, what happens is we try to massage these things into some correct form with words. Because if we don't do that, we tend to feel unmoored or out of control. In other words, we feel the truth. We feel our humanity, and it's humbling. And the one word I can think of to describe this thing that I hope art gets really good at is coherence. And by engaging with this kind of art, Our bodies get more tolerant and build more capacity to hold new feelings, hold intense feelings, hold mysterious sensations, confusion, and contradiction. Because again, that's the truth of life. That's reality. And personally, that's what makes art satisfying for me. It's reminding me of this reality, and I value its ability to keep me awake. And I'm also really grateful to so many artists that are working in this way because it makes life better for those of us who are outstandingly illegible. And I would consider myself one of these people. I'm multiracial. I have a very complex, occupational profile. Um, there are some other things in my life that are like kind of non-traditional or uncategor- uncategorizable. Is that a word? Um, and there are people who are way, way, way more illegible than me, who are in danger for their illegibility. For example, like I don't think people just hate trans people or they just hate pansexual people or multiracial people. I think what's going on is they fear illegibility. We've been conditioned to fear what's not easily categorized or recognizable as something we already know. And fear makes people do horrible things. One of my favorite quotes from the anarchist collective Crime Think is this: the cruelest thing you can do to another person is deny them their complexity. And we are all supremely complex, all of us, if we allow ourselves to be who we are. And all that is to say, coming back to art, that the art we make can help us embrace illegibility and move us away from conflating illegibility with a lack of coherence. And back to dramaturgy, I think this is what dramaturgy, especially in the nonverbal arts, can do. It can locate a sense of wholeness in qualities that are seemingly contradictory, ephemeral, or interstitial. It brings attention to the connective tissue between ideas, space, time, and qualities. And it's the connective tissue between these things that's really alive and interesting. And I really think that this new moon in Gemini, square Neptune, is going to point up these issues and create a lot of flexibility and motion for some. And I also think it's going to make a lot of people angry because their categories and explanations aren't going to stick. It's only words, but we've become so dependent on them. So here's your test to see how you can make and expand meaning without them. So while you sit with that, I'm going to cue up some Gemini inspired music. And when we come back, we'll take a look at the upcoming summer solstice. You're listening to the Cosmic Dispatch. I'm your host, Cory Nakasue. And so onward with the weekly astro weather forecast. So, the next big event of the week is the solstice. In North America, that would be the summer solstice. It's the longest day of the year. And right after we hit that point, the days progressively, incrementally get shorter. Ancient astrologers used to view the building of light as the building of ideals and intentions, and the decreasing of light as a time for those intentions and ideals to land on the earthly plane. Solstice is kind of bittersweet because of that. But we can also look at the landing of ideals in the realm of the material world as part of our maturation process, which is why we celebrate. It's a graduation and it's a landing in our bodies. The summer solstice chart is absolutely sublime. I mean, really, please do whatever your favorite things are on this day. The ruler of the solstice is the moon because the sun enters Cancer and the planet that rules Cancer is the moon. So this would be called the sun's dispositor. So the sun is going to be answering to the moon on that day. And on that day, the moon is in Leo. So that makes this solstice ruled by the moon in Leo. I think this is the first time I'm like actually formally introducing um, this other piece of astrology, which is the dispositor. It's pretty important. And not only is the moon in Leo, but it's approaching Venus in Leo. It's very close. And Venus in Leo is devastatingly close to Mars in Leo. So the moon, right about the time of the solstice, is going to, over the next day or so, move and conjoin Venus and then conjoin Mars. Excuse me if I'm blushing, but that's really hot. Venus and Mars in Leo being pinged by the moon in Leo. Um, and at that time of the sun's ingress into Cancer, the moon also makes a square to Jupiter in Taurus. And that pulls out all of the sensuality and the sweetness and the decadence and the tactile nature of Taurus. Um, so yeah, I've been talking about the squares between Leo and Taurus this summer for a few weeks now, and here it is again, and there it will be for the rest of summer. So just, pay attention to the tone of the week because I think it's just going to ramp up. Anyway, it's delicious. Enjoy. So, as I was saying, the main event of Cancer season, which commences on the 21st, is the summer solstice. And so I'm going to read from something I actually wrote a couple of years ago for the organization Celebrate 845 in their summer solstice zine. I believe it was called And All Was Illuminated. And here goes. In astrology, the sun represents spirit and the conscious mind. It's what we cast light on and what we choose to see. Now, oftentimes we shine light on the very things that make us glow. And this would be an example of the sun as fuel and a source of vitality. Life on Earth doesn't exist without the sun. It provides the energy and warmth we need to move through life's cycles and to know when it's time to move on. The horoscopic wheel begins at daybreak. So that's the point in the personal birth chart, anyway, called the ascendant, or more commonly known as the rising sign. It's your first breath, it's the dawning of life. So the whole experience of life, though, is not one long summer day. The sun does go down, the days do get shorter, and there's a descent. And there's nothing wrong with this process. It only makes life richer and sweeter to appreciate the myriad qualities of light. Think about that dusky magic hour that makes everything like golden and beautiful. Think about the blazing white light of high noon, and also that eerie time of early morning when we can actually see the sun bloom. The sun is always there. It's our relationship to it that changes. And when we see less of it, we can feel more of ourselves. The sun's light helps us turn our attention outward. Now, objectively speaking, summer is not the best season. That's a matter of opinion, but it does get lauded in our culture because our culture tends to value extroversion over introversion, activity over stillness, and visibility over whatever's hidden or whatever's intuitive. It's not that one way of being is better than any other. In fact, one way of being can't exist without the other. The ability to see this play out every single day, sun up, sun down, and throughout the year through the lens of astrology is a real gift, and it's a reminder. Some of the significations of the summer solstice in astrology are to acknowledge, to bring into consciousness, and to illuminate. Now, since the winter solstice in December, our daylight hours have been steadily increasing, like the iris of a camera or an eyeball. We've been dilating, slowly increasing the amount of light we let in. And the more we open, the more we see. And it's quite possible that we're seeing things for the first time that have always been present. This moment of maximum daylight offers an opportunity to integrate that which was too shy, tender, or underdeveloped to be exposed. The summer solstice is a culmination and a moment of ripening for the sun. It's the time of year when feeling becomes a type of knowing. So if you want to read that, the text of that, that might still be available through the Celebrate 845 website. So you should just check out their website and also check out their Instagram stories, which are very informative, very, very helpful, just loaded with a lot of good information. So, yeah, that's what I got to say about the summer solstice. We are going to take a short break. And when we come back, more Gemini season music. You're listening to the Cosmic Dispatch. I'm your host, Cory Nakasue. And we just heard some very Gemini inspired, Gemini feeling tunes from Elvis Costello and the Attractions with Every Day I Write the Book. Gladys Knight and the Pips with I Heard It Through the Grapevine. And of course, Talk Talk with Talk Talk. All you do to me is talk, talk. Um, so there you have it. We're heading out of this very chatty, very movement oriented Gemini season so that we can say hello to Cancer season on the 21st. Um, yeah, don't forget that you can come say hi to me this Friday at Opus 40 for their solstice celebration. I really do think it's just going to be gorgeous and sublime. I mean, come on, imagine lying in a sound bath like right at sunset. And if you've ever been to Opus 40, you know just how beautiful it is. And I think the skies will be, or I hope the skies will be good and clear so we can use these gigantic high powered telescopes to actually see some of these planets fairly close up. So I hope you have an amazing solstice, which is on the 21st again. And I will see y'all next week, same time, same place. Until then, take care. Bye bye.